how I changed my life. So I like solutions. So what I'm going to do in this video is give you sort of the timeline of how I went from, let's call it being a miserable capitalist and being completely lost, to where I am now, which is purpose-driven, an amazingly meaningful life with lots of struggle still, but the motivation and the feeling like I'm getting the happiness and the meaning and the value out of my life. So that's what we're gonna go through. So I might as well start where I kind of left off on the other video, which is like the one about, you know, broke but still happy, going from like a millionaire to being kind of broke, but increasing my happiness. So after I essentially dumped, sabotaged, shelved my business, I still needed to make money and I still needed to raise my son. But I was super depressed and had no motivation and was basically lost. And I look back on that now and I see that I was a child of media. So I was in this realm where I'd been a successful fashion guy. So I was hanging out with people that were, you know, lots of partying, lots of drinking, lots of drugs, that sort of thing. It's this thing we have in our culture where it's like extended youth, or like be young or think that you're young and irresponsible and just good times, you know, get pleasure, and anything that feels good is good. And then a media that backs that up with the suggestion that, you know, all business people make stuff are bad, we're going to wreck the world, we're going to wreck the climate, it's a disaster. I was in those two realms where I had sort of been, I'm going to say, manipulated by this narrative that somehow I was bad. And it probably comes from my childhood as well. So not everyone's going to have that narrative running through their system, but I had sort of like fallen prey to that, I will say. And then also, I had also fallen prey to this idea that, you know, just have fun, life's a party, and, you know, that's the way that you should live, for pleasure and good times and convenience and comfort. But I wasn't feeling good about that life at all. And I felt like I had nothing to look forward to. Like, what? This is not a life that I want. I was really disgusted with that. So I'm like, what else? What else is there? And I had nothing at that time that I could lean on, and anything that would give me motivation or like the idea of a bright future, besides just trying to be a good parent to my son. And that was also a struggle as well. So then I started reading books. One of the first ones I read, I think, that kind of shifted my mentality was The Power of Now. And I also started going to workshops and trying to investigate things that I thought might help. Came across Jordan Peterson at this time, and I really liked a lot of what he was saying, and I thought him to be a very strong, confident, moral individual, and I really enjoyed what he was talking about, and it gave me a little bit of a motivation. And I also went to this thing called the Conscious Relationship Training, and it was a 3-month training that I ended up doing for 6 months. And that was an exploration of your emotions, the unconscious, the subconscious, the things that are driving our life that we really don't realize, childhood trauma, all of the stuff that goes on in our system, goes on in our head, goes on in our emotions, that gives us this slanted view of life, and I'll say kind of like holds us back. So I really started to see how my perceptions, my beliefs, or the lack of beliefs, were kind of interfering with my life. After I did that 6-month course, then I got into something called the Arc of Brotherhood, which is a men's group. And the idea behind that men's group is to build better men. And it's like a support and a challenge group. So it's like a group of guys very much trying to figure out their lives, trying to have better lives, and using a lot of practices that we'd learned from the conscious relationship training to help ourselves become better, find sort of the motivation, purpose, passion in our lives, and really work on that and take action in the real world. And it was a weekly meeting for 3 hours. And I started to really see that the community around me could help me and help my life. And I started to become a better parent. And I started to sort of look at the world in a different way, and as well have some tools to deal with my anger, was mine, to deal with the emotions that I had so that it didn't sabotage my life, and I could move incrementally towards happiness and towards better results that I wanted, as opposed to towards like a miserable existence. And then I came across this YouTube channel called the Academy of Ideas. And in particular, one video called The Psychology of Heroism. And something just clicked. And there was a series of videos that the Academy of Ideas published that were on heroism and on the idea that values and moral virtue and this purpose-driven sort of heroic journey is essentially key to human happiness and the human psyche. And I found that in diving in more into this sort of like this hero story, or Joseph Campbell writes the book, The Hero with a Thousand Faces, there is this thing they call it the monomyth, and it's the one story. It is the heroic story of the hero going through crap in order to come out the other end, either morally victorious or realistically victorious or a better man or whatever. And that being the essential human story. And then boom, I was like, that's it. I'm in the mud. I don't have a sense of my values, a sense of a vision. And if I found those values and I really dug deep, and I was reading Nietzsche as well, and Carl Jung, and a lot of these other authors, Ernest Becker, Erich Fromm, I just started diving deeper into these psychology books and philosophy books on, the core element of human triumph, achievement, success, happiness, fulfillment, meaning, all of these key elements, and they all led to this core values, vision, and establishing like goals beyond that so that you can get from your core values to your vision, and creating this vision of your life that then was attached to the meaning, the happiness, the achievement, the success, whatever that is that I individually wanted in my life, being able to figure out what that was and then craft a vision of my future to move forward. And that's when I started to create a formula for myself that would dig out all of these things and make them very, very obvious to me, and then give me a structure and a way to create a vision across different life categories so that I could evaluate and see if it was working in those categories or not. And then create goals to work on each one of those things individually so that it would create the big vision I had for my life, and I could get that satisfaction, happiness, achievement, all the things that I wanted, but I didn't find in what society was defining for me as the way to be happy. But even though I had created this formula and I started following it, I still was not happy. I still struggled immensely to separate myself from this cultural learning and then to move towards really, really what was core inside me. And of course, I was in, call it the machine, or call it society, or call it the economy. And I was like, how do I move myself from this lifestyle into something that gives me more satisfaction, more happiness, more meaning in my life. And so that struggle was to try and incrementally move the parts of my life more in this direction than in the path that wasn't giving me the happiness that I wanted. And so for a bunch of years, and in fact, it came to a point on my 50th birthday, I was out shoveling snow and I heard a crack, and then I fell down and I couldn't move. And for 6 months, I couldn't even stand up for more than 5 minutes without being in like massive amounts of pain. And I had blown out four bulging discs in my lower back. And the reason was I was doing Muay Thai kickboxing and I was destroying my body, and it wasn't even paying attention to it. And it came to that point where my body just gave out. And so at that point, I was like, okay, I really, really have to change my life. I'm going to fix my back. The system wasn't helping me. It was during COVID. They were going to fuse my spine as the only option. And because I said, well, I got extremely angry with the doctors and yelled at them and called them everything. And then they booted me from the back specialist. And I was banned from any kind of medical in Canada. And I was like, great, now I can fix my back myself. So I went on a mission and I was like, this is it. I am now going to change my life. I am going to fix my back, and I am going to move out of this city. And when my son graduates, I am going to go off grid and live in the wild and really have an experience of life that I wanted. And part of this was, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Lethal Weapon, but in that movie, Mel Gibson lives in this camper on the beach. And that vision came to me in my head. And I'm like, I want to try this lifestyle. I want to do this and see what happens. And so that became part of my vision. And then I started to create goals that would get me there. And so again, I struggled and I tried to rearrange my life, and I had these goals and I had this vision, and it just didn't seem to be working. And it was like, I'm struggling, I'm not getting this. And then all of a sudden, within 3 months, I sold my original brand name for my company for a certain amount, and I'm like, I can take this money and I can get out of this rat race as soon as my son graduates from college. And so I set that as a goal. I sold the company, the brand name, got the money, and then started spreading it out there that I was looking to go off grid and looking to move somewhere else. And lo and behold, with some of the money that I got from selling the brand name, what I did was I actually paid back an investor from a few years ago who had invested money into my company and lost it. And I had lost a ton of money as well. And within a week, he called me back and said, hey, I am looking at property on the beach in Baja, and I'm wondering if you're interested. Why don't you come down and take a look at it? I went down there, flew down there immediately, saw that I could surf, saw that it was cool at night, hot during the day, saw the opportunity for the property, and I could get a tiny little piece of it with the amount of money that I had. And I was like, this is it, I'm in. Went home, packed up all my stuff, bought this truck, and drove down to Baja and jumped into literally the life I had been dreaming of for the past 3 years before that. And not only that, when I got here, my back had healed up to about 70 to 80%, but I still was not able to do serious activity to surf more than once a week without being in pain. And I found a woman who does something called plasma replacement therapy, and I went and got that. It's pretty much illegal in Canada, or it costs tens and tens of thousands of dollars to do it. And for $1,500, I went and got this plasma replacement therapy in my back, and I was 100% and surfing. And this was the life that I didn't even really think was possible, even though I wrote it down as I want this life. It has turned into so much better. I mean, there's always challenges. You can look at my other videos from when I first drove down here and when I first got here. There's a ton of challenges, but they're like exciting, invigorating, life-affirming challenges that I wanted for me, that I really, really like, that make me feel good. I'm able to create a life almost out of raw material here. And so what am I doing now? Well, besides making these videos and trying to give you and others a solution from how am I not feeling happiness in these areas of my life, and how can I get that? And so I've been doing retreats. I set up a men's group here, and giving people the solutions that I've been looking for years. So the takeaways: wherever you are in life, there are ways, solutions, and a structure so that you can get more out of life. You can get that deep meaning and happiness out of your life. And yeah, I'm here to help you do that to the best of my ability through these videos, through some courses, and those are the solutions that work for me, and that's what I want to offer people. So I hope that helps you. For more, stay tuned. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Talk to you soon.